Chapter 26 of Penrod. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Jonathan Burchard, April 2009. Penrod by Booth Tarkington. Chapter 26. The Quiet Afternoon. Perhaps middle-aged people might discern nature's real intentions in the matter of pain if they would examine a boy's punishments and sorrows, for he prolongs neither beyond their actual duration. With a boy, trouble must be of Homeric dimensions to last overnight. To him, every next day is really a new day. Thus, Penrod woke next morning with neither the unspared rod nor Mr. Kinosling on his mind. Tar itself, so far as his consideration of it went, might have been an undiscovered substance. His mood was cheerful and mercantile, some process having worked mysteriously within him during the night, to the result that his first waking thought was of profits connected with the sale of old iron, or perhaps a ragman had passed the house just before he woke. By 10 o'clock he had formed a partnership with the indeed amiable Sam, and the firm of Schofield and Williams plunged headlong into commerce. Heavy dealings in rags, paper, old iron, and lead gave the firm a balance of 22 cents on the evening of the third day, but a venture in glassware following proved disappointing on account of the skepticism of all the druggists in that part of town, even after 7 laborious hours had been spent in cleansing a wheelbarrow load of old medicine bottles with hydrant water and ashes. Likewise, the partners were disheartened by their failure to dispose of a crop of greens, although they had uprooted specimens of that decorative and unappreciated flower, the dandelion, with such persistence and energy that the Schofields and Williams Long looked curiously haggard for the rest of that summer. The fit passed. Business languished and became extinct. The dog days had set in. One August afternoon was so hot that even boys sought indoor shade. In the dimness of the vacant carriage-house of the stable lounged Masters Penrod Schofield, Samuel Williams, Maurice Levy, Georgie Bassett, and Herman. They sat still and talked. It is a hot day, in rare truth, when boys devote themselves principally to conversation, and this day was that hot. Their elders should beware such days. Peril hovers near when the fierceness of weather forces inaction and boys in groups are quiet. The more closely volcanoes, western rivers, nitroglycerin, and boys are pent, the deadlier is their action at the point of outbreak. Thus, parents and guardians should look for outrages of the most singular violence and of the most peculiar nature during the confining weather of February and August. The thing which befell upon this broiling afternoon began to brew and stew peacefully enough. All was innocence and languor. No one could have foretold the eruption. They were upon their great theme, "When I Get to be a Man." Being human, though boys, they considered their present estate too commonplace to be dwelt upon. So when the old men gather, they say, "When I was a boy." It is really the land of nowadays that we never discover. "When I am a man," said Sam Williams, "I'm going to hire me a couple of colored waiters to swing me in a hammock and keep pouring ice water on me all day out of those watering cans they sprinkle flowers from. I'll hire you for one of 'em, Herman." "No, you ain't goin' to," said Herman promptly. "You ain't no flower. But never mind that, anyway. Ain't nobody gonna hire me when I's a man. Gotta be my own boss, so I'm going to be a railroad man." "You mean like a superintendent or something like that, and sell tickets?" asked Penrod. "Somepin' never mind that. Sell ticket? No, suh. Gonna be a poter. My uncle a poter right now. Solid gold buttons, oh. "Generals got a lot more buttons than porters," said Penrod. "Generals, poters make the best livin'," Herman interrupted. "My uncle spend more money than any white man in this town." "Well, I'd rather be a general," said Penrod, "or a senator, or something like that." "Senators live in Washington," Maurice Levy contributed the information. "I been there. Washington ain't so much. Niagara Falls is 100 times as good as Washington. So's Atlantic City. I was there, too. I been everywhere there is. Well, anyway," said Sam Williams, raising his voice in order to obtain the floor. "Anyway, I'm going to lay in a hammock all day and have ice water sprinkled on top of me. And I'm going to lay there all night, too, and the next day. I'm going to lay there a couple of years, maybe." "I bet you don't!" exclaimed Maurice. "What did you do in winter?" "What? What are you going to do when it's winter, out in a hammock with water sprinkled on top of you all day?" "I bet I'd stay right there," Sam declared, with strong conviction, blinking as he looked out through the open doors at the dazzling lawn and trees, trembling in the heat. "They couldn't sprinkle too much for me." It'd make icicles all over you." "I wish it would," said Sam. "I'd eat 'em up." "And it'd snow on you." "Yay! I'd swaller it as fast as it'd come down. I wish I had a barrel of snow right now. I wish this whole barn was full of it. I wish there wasn't anything on the whole world except just good old snow." Penrod and Herman rose and went out to the hydrant, where they drank long and ardently. Sam was still talking about snow when they returned. "No, I wouldn't just roll in it. I'd stick it all round inside my clothes, and fill my hat. No, I'd freeze a big pile of it all hard, and I'd roll her out flat, and then I'd carry her down to some old tailor's and have him make me a suit out of her. And—" "Can't you keep still about your old snow?" demanded Penrod petulantly. "Makes me so thirsty I can't keep still, and I've drunk so much now I bet I bust. That old hydrant water's mighty near hot, anyway." "I'm going to have a big store when I grow up," volunteered Maurice. "Candy store?" asked Penrod. "No, sir. I'll have candy in it, but not to eat so much. It's going to be a deportment store. Ladies' clothes, gentlemen's clothes, neckties, china goods, leather goods, nice lines and woolings and lace goods." "Yay! I wouldn't give a 5 for a cent marble for your whole store," said Sam. "Would you, Penrod?" "Not for 10 of 'em. Not for a million of 'em. I'm going to have—" "Wait!" clamored Maurice. "You'd be foolish, because they'd be a toy deportment in my store where they'd be 100 marbles. So how much would you think your 5 for a cent marble counts for? And when I'm keeping my store, I'm going to get married." "Yay!" shrieked Sam derisively. "Married? Listen!" Penrod and Herman joined in the howl of contempt. "Certainly I'll get married," asserted Maurice stoutly. "I'll get married to Marjorie Jones. She likes me awful good, and I'm her beau." "What makes you think so?" inquired Penrod in a cryptic voice. "Because she's my beau, too," came the prompt answer. "I'm her beau because she's my beau. I guess that's plenty reason. I'll get married to her as soon as I get my store running nice." Penrod looked upon him darkly, but, for the moment, held his peace. "Married?" jeered Sam Williams. "Married to Marjorie Jones? You're the only boy I ever heard say he was going to get married. I wouldn't get married for—why, I wouldn't for— Unable to think of any inducement the mere mention of which would not be ridiculously incommensurate, he proceeded, "I wouldn't do it. What would you want to get married for? What do married people do, except just come home tired and worry around and kind of scold? You better not do it, Maurice. You'll be mighty sorry." "Everybody gets married," stated Maurice, holding his ground. "They gotta." "I bet I won't," Sam returned hotly. "They better catch me before they tell me I have to. Anyway, I bet nobody has to get married unless they want to." "They do, too," insisted Maurice. "They gotta." "Who told you?" "Look at what my papa told me," cried Maurice, heated with argument. "Didn't he tell me your papa had to marry your mamma, or else she never got to handle a cent of her money? Certainly, people gotta marry. Everybody. You don't know anybody over 20 years old that isn't married, except maybe teachers." "Look at policemen!" shouted Sam triumphantly. "You don't suppose anybody can make policemen get married, I reckon, do you?" "Well, policemen, maybe," Maurice was forced to admit. "Policemen and teachers don't, but everybody else gotta." "Well, I'll be a policeman," said Sam. "Then I guess they won't come around telling me I have to get married. What you going to be, Penrod?" "Chief police," said the laconic Penrod. "What you?" Sam inquired of quiet Georgie Bassett. "I am going to be," said Georgie consciously, "a minister." This announcement created a sensation so profound that it was followed by silence. Herman was the first to speak. "You mean preacher?" he asked incredulously. "You gon' preach?" "Yes," said Georgie, looking like Saint Cecilia at the organ. Herman was impressed. "You know all that preacher talk?" "I'm going to learn it," said Georgie simply. "How loud can you holler?" asked Herman doubtfully. "He can't holler at all," Penrod interposed with scorn. "He hollers like a girl. He's the poorest hollerer in town." Herman shook his head. Evidently he thought Georgie's chance of being ordained very slender. Nevertheless, a final question put to the candidate by the colored expert seemed to admit one ray of hope. "How good can you climb a pole?" "He can't climb one at all," Penrod answered for Georgie. "Over at Sam's turning pole, you ought to see him try to." "Preachers don't have to climb poles," Georgie said with dignity. "Good ones do," declared Herman. Best one ever, I hear. He climb up and down, same as a circus man. One them big Bibles out and when's we livin' on a farm. Preacher climb big pole right in the middle of the church, what was to hold roof up. He climb way up and holler, "Going to heaven, going to heaven, going to heaven now, hallelujah, praise my Lord." And then he slide down a little and holler, "Devil's got a hold of my coattails. Devil trying to drag me down. Sinners, take warning. Devil got a hold of my coattails. I'm a-going to hell. Oh, Lord." Next, he climb up a little more and yell and holler, "Done shuck old devil loose, going straight to heaven again. Going to heaven, my Lord." Next, he slide down some more and holler, "Leg on my coattails, old devil. Going to hell again, sinners, going straight to hell, my Lord." And he climb and he slide and he slide and he climb, and all time holler, "Now I'm a-going to heaven. Now I'm a-going to hell. Going to heaven, heaven, my Lord." Last he slide all the way down, just a squalling and a kicking and a rearing up and a squalling. Going to hell, oh, Satan got my soul. Going to hell, hell. Herman possessed that extraordinary facility for vivid acting which is the same native gift of his race, and he enchained his listeners. They sat fascinated and spellbound. "Herman, tell that again," said Penrod breathlessly. Herman, nothing loath, accepted the encore and repeated the Miltonic episode, expanding it somewhat, and dwelling with a fine art upon those portions of the narrative which he perceived to be most exciting to his audience. Plainly, they thrilled less to Paradise gain than to its losing, and the dreadful climax of the descent into the pit was the greatest treat of all. The effect was immense and instant. Penrod sprang to his feet. "Georgie Bassett couldn't do that to save his life," he declared. "I'm going to be a preacher. I'd be all right for one, wouldn't I, Herman?" "So am I," Sam Williams echoed loudly. "I guess I can do it if you can. I'd be better in Penrod, wouldn't I, Herman?" "I am too," Maurice shouted. "I got a stronger voice than anybody here, and I'd like to know what—" The three clamored together indistinguishably, each asserting his qualifications for the ministry according to Herman's theory, which had been accepted by these sudden converts without question. "Listen to me!" Maurice bellowed, proving his claim to at least the voice by drowning the others. "Maybe I can't climb a pole so good, but who can holler louder than this? Listen to me!" "Shut up!" cried Penrod, irritated. "Go to heaven, go to hell!" "Ooh!" exclaimed Georgie Bassett, profoundly shocked. Sam and Maurice, awed by Penrod's daring, ceased from turmoil, staring wide-eyed. "You cursed and swore," said Georgie. "I did not!" cried Penrod hotly. "That isn't swearing." "You said, 'Go to a big H,'" said Georgie. "I did not. I said, 'Go to heaven,' before I said a big H. That isn't swearing, is it, Herman? It's almost what the preacher said, ain't it, Herman? It ain't swearing now, any more, not if you put 'go to heaven' with it, is it, Herman? You can say it all you want to, long as you say 'go to heaven' first, can't you, Herman? Anybody can say it if the preacher says it, can't they, Herman? I guess I know when I ain't swearing, don't I, Herman?" Judge Herman ruled for the defendant, and Penrod was considered to have carried his point. With fine consistency, the conclave established that it was proper for the general public to "say it," provided "go to heaven" should in all cases precede it. This prefix was pronounced a perfect disinfectant, removing all odor of impiety or insult, and with the exception of Georgie Bassett, who maintained that the minister's words were going and gone, not go, all the boys proceeded to exercise their new privilege so lavishly that they tired of it. But there was no diminution of evangelical ardor. Again were heard the clamors of dispute as to which was the best qualified for the ministry, each of the claimants appealing passionately to Herman, who, pleased but confused, appeared to be incapable of arriving at a decision. During a pause, Georgie Bassett asserted his prior rights. "Who said it first, I'd like to know?" he demanded. "I was going to be a minister from long back of today, I guess, and I guess I said I was going to be a minister right today before any of you said anything at all. Didn't I, Herman? You heard me, didn't you, Herman? That's the very thing started you talking about it, wasn't it, Herman?" "You're right," said Herman. "You're the first one to say it." Penrod, Sam, and Maurice immediately lost faith in Herman. "Well, what if you did say it first?" Penrod shouted. "You couldn't be a minister if you were 100 years old." "I bet his mother wouldn't let him be one," said Sam. "She never lets him do anything." "She would, too," retorted Georgie. "Ever since I was little, He's too sissy to be a preacher," cried Maurice. "Listen at his squeaky voice." "I'm going to be a better minister," shouted Georgie, "than all three of you put together. I could do it with my left hand." The three laughed bitingly in chorus. They jeered, derided, scoffed, and raised an uproar which would have had its effect upon much stronger nerves than Georgie's. For a time he contained his choler, and chanted monotonously over and over, I could too, I could too." But their tumult wore upon him, and he decided to avail himself of the recent decision whereby a big H was rendered innocuous and unprofane. Having used the expression once, he found it comforting and substituted it for I could too. But it relieved him only temporarily. His tormentors were unaffected by it and increased their howlings, until at last Georgie lost his head altogether. Badgered beyond bearing, his eyes shining with a wild light, he broke through the besieging trio, hurling little Maurice from his path with a frantic hand. "I'll show you!" he cried in this sudden frenzy. "You give me a chance and I'll prove it right now." "That's talking business!" shouted Penrod. "Everybody keep still a minute, everybody!" He took command of the situation at once, displaying a fine capacity for organization and system. It needed only a few minutes to set order in the place of confusion and to determine, with the full concurrence of all parties, the conditions under which Georgie Bassett was to defend his claim by undergoing what may be perhaps intelligibly defined as the Herman test. Georgie declared he could do it easily. He was in a state of great excitement and in no condition to think calmly, or probably he would not have made the attempt at all. Certainly he was overconfident. End of chapter 26.